All right. So I'm going to go by what everybody's been talking about, which pretty much is according to Reuters. Paramount Skydance is preparing for a bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. So I'm going to get what I'm not going to read the whole article. So Paramount Skydance is preparing to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. A source familiar with the matter told Reuters Thursday, potentially bringing together two storied Hollywood studios reshaping the entertainment industry. A bid for Warner Brothers Discovery would be backed by the Ellison family, which includes Skydance head David Ellison and his father, billionaire Oracle and co-founder Larry Ellison, according to the Wall Street Journal, which first reported the news, citing unnamed sources. So the audacious bid coming just weeks after Skydance bought Paramount Global for $8.4 billion will unite some of the best known entertainment brands under a single corporate shingle, bringing together DC comics superheroes like Superman, as well as Nickelodeon Super Bob, SpongeBob SquarePants, science fiction franchises like The Matrix and Star Trek, and two major news networks as well as CBS News and CNN. The deal is the Hollywood equivalent of a sequel that no one expected, but everyone sort of saw coming. Yeah, because I think the writing was been on the wall for the longest time. I think everybody else knew that, when everything went left with James Gunn, that there were talks that pretty much that the moves that Zaslav was making, that he was prepared to sell. And the very fact that Warner Brothers is pretty much like, I do believe they're like, what, $30 billion in debt? They're $30 billion in debt. And they have never been able really to shake that. So the writing was on the wall just to make sure at a certain point that they were actually going to get rid of them and unload it. Now, still shares of Warner Brothers Discovery surged as much as 30% after the news, after the news, while Paramount's jumped 15%. Paramount and Warner Brothers declined to comment on the report. So from what I saw, Warner Brothers is up to $18 a share. Okay. I think it was sometime last week or before this was even announced, it was at $11. And I think that it's not even at its lowest, but I think before that it was at $10. So right now it's showing that fact is this might gain momentum to actually where the company might be a little bit more, people are more optimistic, $18 a share, it may go higher considering the fact is that if there's something beneficial that's going to come out of this. Let me see here. And Warner Brothers Discovery has been reorganizing the media business to split its declining cable television business from its studio and streaming units. Skydance, however, is seeking to acquire all Warner Brothers Discovery's media assets, including its Warner Brothers Film Studio, HBO, and CNN, in a mostly cash deal, the Wall Street Journal reported. For Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders, a cash-rich exit is far more appealing than waiting around for Zaslav's restructuring magic to maybe pay off. E-marketers Goldman said that referred to CEO David Zaslav's plan to separate Warner Brothers Discovery cable business from its studios and streaming operations, unwinding a merger that took place less than 4 years ago. So the whole merger is pretty much is basically to have everybody look at what's on the table, what's more profitable, what's not. In my opinion, I think I was going to actually do a video regarding that. Warner Brothers was going to lay off a lot of people. And on top of that, since James Gunn's projects are not taking off as they thought, and since Superman pretty much flopped, it's going to result in not getting a whole bunch of money, and it's actually losing Warner Brothers money. That's also going to result in more people being laid off. So again, the same people that make Warner Brothers, from the ground up, as far as all the people that they need to be able to help make the movies, they're the ones that the first people that are actually going to take the hit to be laid off are the people that they rely upon, building the sets, and all the little people who don't, who are not pretty much, famous, who don't come from big money. So that's what's going to happen. So this is just pretty much an indication that is definitely going to happen. So this whole deal, from what I'm seeing here, these are my thoughts on this. So I'm not against it. However, I will say this: I'm skeptical of the deal. And the reason I'm skeptical of it, because we saw what happened with Disney and Marvel, right? So, and I was one of the biggest supporters of that deal. So I wanted the best to come out of it. And now the best thing to come out of that is pretty much Deadpool and Wolverine, and I never even thought that would happen. So at this point, and on top of that, some of the animated projects and stuff like that. But as far as Star Wars and everything, there's been in the majority of it has been pretty much like a big letdown. So hopefully they will see this as an opportunity for them not to be able to make those mistakes. That's just me being optimistic about it. However, this seems to be that this could be more of a win for Paramount Skydance than Warner Brothers. And I say that due to the fact is that Paramount Skydance, just Paramount as a whole, has limited IPs. And with Mission Impossible just coming out with its last movie, they have Transformers. Michael Bay just already announced that he's already going to be coming out with a new Transformer movie, which is also good news for Transformer fans. And their other IPs that they have is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog, and the Tyler Sheridan led Yellowstone spinoffs, as well as other projects that are related to, as well as his other projects. And we also can't discount Jack Ryan and the other Tom Clancy based characters with limited involvement that Paramount has to deal with the deal that they have with Amazon. So this can actually help them to be able to build up their IPs, because Star Trek, I think the only project that they have going right now is Star Trek Brave New World, and there's not too much interest in expanding Star Trek more than where it's at. So this will actually be a giant win for them, because as far as IPs, as far as building a franchise, this will help them to get a piece of the pie in that regard. Okay. Also, that limited amount of IPs could force Paramount and Skydance to actually make the best of this to see what Warner Brothers Discovery has to offer as far as their strengths. So somebody can look at the financials and decide when was the stock the highest, which is when it's with that Zack Snyder. You don't have to like Zack Snyder, but that's when the stock was at its highest, and that's when they made more money. So this is not, hopefully if they decide to bring on people that's going to be the best fit for their company, and to be able to make sure that the intellectual property is going to be treated properly, they need to go to the people who are the most talented to actually deal with it. And Zack Snyder is one of those people who's familiar with it, that won't really be that won't sabotage it, because he has a history of doing that. On top of that, the biggest thing I worry about is the limited involvement that Paramount Skydance will have in him actually exercising his vision. That's the biggest that is the biggest problem Warner Brothers has, is basically sabotaging the projects, the studio interference, because Warner Brothers has a history of studio interference. We talk about it all the time. So hopefully the studio interference is something that Paramount is not going to be held against Zack Snyder, and actually they'll let him to be able to take full control and exercise his control just based on his experience of dealing with Warner Brothers. And hopefully that creates an open door, because from my research, from what I've seen, Mike DeLuca would happily bring in Zack Snyder if Zaslav and James Gunn were not part of the picture. So this will open the door for, hopefully the Ellisons will be open to the fact of bringing Zack Snyder in, letting him have complete creative control. He doesn't have to run the whole DC, but he can just basically come in and finish out his vision, and just allow him to be able to give him the space to operate in the maneuver, so he can be able just to finish that out, and what other potential projects that he might be interested in as well. Okay. And as well, and hopefully, if the merger goes through, the only real rivals that I see that they would have is pretty much would be Comcast Universal, because they only have Jurassic World, the Jurassic World series, as well as the Fast and Furious movies, which is the part 2. I think it's coming out 2 years from now, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. And that will also bring Disney with the Marvel movies and TV shows, as well as the Disney movies, the animated and live action movies, as well as Avatar and Star Wars with their movies and television shows as well. So, as well, and they can't count out Netflix, because Netflix is good at original content. So those will be their only rivals. So at this point, this will help Paramount, help them to compete. And this will also help them to be able to make sure they can bring in the best talent, and to make sure that they can be actually gain the most benefit from these IPs, especially when it comes to DC Studios. And hopefully, this is my wish. My wish is for them to bring in Mike DeLuca, so that Mike DeLuca can be the head of DC Studios. So that way, because him and Pam Abdon have been known to create hits, and since they are known to create hits, there is no question that him bringing in Zack Snyder will be number one, and it would not be questioned. Okay, That's the whole that's what I would like to get out of this. I want Mike DeLuca, the head of DC Studios, and I want him to bring in Zack Snyder to finish out his vision or any other potential projects with his involvement. And this will basically allow them to be able to course correct the way that from Zaslav and James Gunn to be able to for them to prevent them from running off directors and other talent. So this will be able to help them open the playing field for them to be able to say, we want to bring in talent and we don't want to interfere, so they can actually differ from the current regime that we have now. So hopefully they learn from that and they see that and they create an open door for talent to bring in people when they couldn't before, and that there's no studio interference and everything could be fruitful and multiply. All right, those are my thoughts. I'm trying to stay on top of this. I definitely want to know how this is going to result. But that's all I got for now. And until the next video, peace.